Yeah, we have been discussing if else in the last class. We had discussed, isn't it? So we'll just go through that. While also we have discussed small shorthand notation in if else was not discussed. So I thought I'll discuss that. So we have this if else keyword. As you all know, we have if, and if you have to continuously check for one more if condition, then you have ELIF, which is a new thing in Python compared to your C programming. And then we have else as well. So together with these things, we also have a shorthand if. Screen is also visible, I guess. Confirm. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have shorthand if, wherein we can write an if statement in a single line. So if you have only one statement to execute, you can put it in the same line as the if statement, like this. So if we have if A greater than B, there itself print A is greater than B. Usually what we do is we do indentation, isn't it? If, and we leave some space here and we will try to execute it in the next line. It's also possible to write it in a single line. So that is called as shorthand if. So an example would be like this. If A greater than B, immediately we have this print A is greater than B. In the same way, we can also have one line if else statement. Okay, so if this is the if else statement we have, see A equal to 2 and B equal to 330, and we are just checking which one is greater. So what happens here is, if it is true, if this turns out to be true, if this condition turns out to be true, then it prints A. If A is greater than B, then it prints A. Otherwise, print B. So if you all will remember, we had a ternary operator in our C programming, or conditional expression, isn't it? Where we were able to use if multiple if conditions in a single statement. It works the same way. So if A is greater than B, then this print A. You can also have multiple if statements. That is the next example, whatever we'll take. See here, we have one line if else statement with three conditions here. So if at all, if we have two values like this, it checks here. If it is true, this, otherwise it comes here as it has again an else with if, this part will be executed. So we have if A equal to B, then equal to, we say that both values are equal. Otherwise, it prints B as the greater value. So we are just checking whether two values are equal, greater than, or less than. So the same if else statement with one line if else statement with three conditions. This is the example. Like this is how we can write. It's not that you should write it in the same way whatever we discussed earlier, like if, else if, and else. It's also possible to write a shorthand if statement in this way. Okay, and this resembles your ternary operator or conditional expression, whatever we were doing it in C program, right? So print if A is greater than B, then this will be printed as a part of your output. Otherwise, else it comes to the if and checks. And if A equal to B here, otherwise B is the greater value. Is that clear? This is one shorthand notation we have in Python. Moving on to the next topic, we also have a AND logical operator. And as well as OR, which can be used in if statement. So like this. This is the AND keyword, which is used in the if statement to check whether both the conditions are true, isn't it? AND means you all know very well AND or how it operates. So if both the conditions are true, then we will be using this to check whether both the conditions are true. We will be using this AND. If A greater than B and C greater than A, so both conditions are true. In the same way, if either of the condition is true, then we have OR operator. So OR keyword, when we have to check for either of the condition being true. So we have these values. If A is greater than B or A is greater than C, so at least one of the conditions should be true here. It's just an example to show how do we use this or and keyword as a part of your if statement. Okay. Yes. Nested if x is greater than 10, here you can also have an elif here instead of this if itself. It's possible to have elif or you can also have nested if, either of them. So this is an example for nested if statements wherein we have an if statement within which we have one more if statement. So if age is greater than 10, we'll say it is above 10. Otherwise, we say it is above 20. Else, it is not above 20. So an example of nested if. Usually we try to avoid this nested if because it creates a lot of confusion. Instead, we will have that elif function being used in our program. And Python loops, we have touched up with the while loop in the last class. Let's take a look again. So Python has two primitive loops, that is while loop and for loop. But there is no do while loop in Python. Only while loop we have where we check the condition at the initial condition initially. As you all know, do while checks at the end because a minimum number of iterations will be one there. But here we don't have the do while. We have only while wherein we can execute a set of statements as long as the condition is true. So here this is just an example wherein we have a value set to 1, I value set to 1, and we print all the values until the value of I is less than 6, and we are incrementing each time. The syntax, if you will check, while the condition followed by colon, and we have indented the block to say that it is this set of statements should be executed these many number of times, and this is how the indentation is done. As we don't have flower brackets to identify the loop, we have this indented block in Python. Okay, an example. So we have discussed with break and continue statement also. Let's just go through it. So where if we want to, we break this statement, break statement will usually stop the loop even if the while condition is true. So we have this break being used in the program. So what does this does? It exits the loop when I value is 3. So we have I being 1. While I is less than 6, we print it. Once I is 3, we just break the loop. Okay, so what are the values which we will be able to see in the as a part of output? It's only 1, 2, and 3. Because breaks, you know very well, it stops the loop even if the condition is true. And continue statement wherein we just stop the current iteration and continue with the next one. So here as an example, we continue to the next iteration if I value is 3. If the value of I is 3, then we just continue. We will not print the value of I. This we discussed in the last class. So an example, you can just go through it. So break and continue statements which are being used in while loop. And couple of programs also you would have written in the last class. Yes. While loop with else. So can we have while loop with else? Same as with for loops, while loops can also have an optional else block. And as you all know, this else part is executed if the condition in while loop evaluates to false. That's obvious, isn't it? And we can terminate a while loop with the help of a break statement. In that case, when we terminate the loop, the else part will be ignored. So a while loop's else part runs if no break occurs and if the condition is false. So if at all, if we have a while loop with else, then when does it work? It works when the condition is false and in case we don't have any break statement in the loop, in the while loop. So this is an example for you which illustrates the use of else statement with the while loop. So not only with your if statement, you can also have else with while as well. So here we have while counter is less than 3, we are saying that it is inside the loop and we are incrementing this. So once if it is greater than 3, then it becomes false. This becomes false, isn't it? When while condition becomes false, the else part is executed and it says that if we are inside else. See, we are inside this else. So depending on your requirement, you can use else statement with the while loop. So as you all know, what is this? Example to illustrate, we have enclosed with, either you can enclose with double quote, 3 double quotes or 3 single quotes to comment these lines. So this is multi-line string, which is a multi-line string which is spread across 3 lines. And how do we write the multi-line string? By using either 3 single quotes or 3 double quotes. And we have a counter here as well, right? And we also have a pass statement in Python, which is nothing but a null statement. And if at all, if what happens with the difference between this comment and pass statement is that the interpreter ignores a comment entirely, whereas pass is not ignored, but it is just considered as a null statement where nothing happens when pass statement is executed. So what is the difference between this comment and pass statement is the interpreter ignores the comment entirely, whereas on the other hand, pass is not ignored. Instead, nothing will be done. There will be no operation when this pass statement is executed. So when is this useful? When is this pass statement useful in Python? Suppose you have written one if condition and you forgot what to write within that if. In that case, you can just give a pass statement there. We can write pass there, which ignores or nothing happens when that particular condition is executed. So the pass statement, if statements usually cannot be empty, but if you for some reason have an if statement with no content, then we just put a pass there to avoid getting an error. So to avoid getting an error, we can just use a pass statement. See here, if b greater than a, I don't want to do anything. In that case, I can just use this pass. Okay, so an example of a pass statement wherein we have a pass if statement with nothing and we have used this pass here. Just note down this if at all if it is required, or anyway PPTs will be shared. Yes. We'll move on to the for loop and the range function and write some programs here. So as you all know, while loops keeps looping while its condition is true. But if we want to execute a block of code only for certain number of times, we are restricting those statements to be executed only for certain number of times. In that case, we can go for for loop. Okay, for loop statement and the range function. We have this range function in for loop, which was not there in our C programming. That was a different syntax. Here we have different syntax wherein we use range function here. So what do we have in range? This. So for statement looks something like this. So we will have a syntax which is like this. So for the variable name, we have the for keyword, and then we'll have this variable name, the in keyword, and we have a call to this range method. So this range method can have up to 3 arguments passed to it, 3 integers passed to it. And we are ending this for loop with a colon. Okay. So for I in range, and here we can have maximum 3 integers. Right now I am having only one integer, 5. So, and we have a colon. Then whatever set of statements should be executed as a part of this for loop will be indented within this for loop. Now, so what is this one value? So if you specify only one value, so initial value will be taken as 0, and it prints all the value excluding the value which is specified as an argument here. So we will have 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 printed on the screen if at all if this type of for loop is used.